Sure.
But in those networking events, it's mostly somebody trying to sell to you or
Right.
you trying to sell somebody you.
Hey there, and welcome to a brand new episode of Delivering Marketing Joy. I am your lucky host, Kirby Hasseman, and joining me today is a good buddy of mine. I'm so excited to have him back on the show. He's the CEO of Amplify Marketing down there in Birmingham, Alabama. Nadav Raviv, thanks so much for joining me.
Kirby, once again, thank you so much for having me. It is an honor.
Oh man, I always enjoy catching up with you. I always get a burst of energy chatting with you, and we both know that. If you want to follow Nadav, Promo Never Sleeps is sort of his handle. So that's
if they want to stay up all night, Promo never sleeps, but they can take naps.
I love it. Well, I want to jump in because again, we are friends, and so I follow you on social, and I've noticed that you've been taking an interest in the service side of business in your business, and so I'm curious, and by that I mean serving on boards and kind of lending your time and expertise to things. I'm curious, is that a part of your marketing strategy, or is it just something that makes you feel good?
So initially starting out, getting into the promo world, I felt like I was making money but I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't impacting anybody's life. And thankfully, when I started at City Paper, there was a lady who was part of our executive team, Kathy Friedman, who was on boards all over Birmingham. And she knew my grandmother, who started the Holocaust Education Center, who started the Jewish Day School, who started the Jewish Federation, and started FEMA in Birmingham, in Alabama. And I knew I had big shoes to fill because of my mom and my grandmother, which I think we talked about before. But I saw her, and I noticed that, going after being on these boards it is rewarding. I mean, it's rewarding twofold. Absolutely rewarding in the service sense because you're giving back. But when I started getting on these boards, I mean, I guess selfishly, unselfishly, you're on boards with all the other major players in these big buildings that I'm looking at downtown. Alabama Power, Core Construction, Shipped. I mean, all these major companies. And when you're on the board with them, you get a level of trust with them.
Sure.
Right. They see that you have the same mentality and alignment that they do. Right now, I'm on 5 boards. I'm actually running for Man of the Year right now for LLS, Lymphoma Leukemia Society. That's my plug. We're doing a 50-state challenge right now. I got to get $20 or more from every state. So if y'all want to donate, hit me up on Promo Never Sleeps. But I'm on the Firehouse Shelter, which is it's a Christian ministry, but it's helping homeless people here in Birmingham. I'm on Glenwood, which is an autism awareness housing community lifestyle for individuals with autism. I'm on the board of the Jewish Day School. I went to school there. I owe it to them. I'm on the board of the Holocaust Education Center. It's in my wheelhouse, and I owe it to my grandmother and my mom, who just resigned as the executive director because she's retired and she didn't even want to do it, but she filled that role. So it's kind of twofold. Yes, there's a service aspect of it, but there's also the marketing side of it too. It's like being a part of a networking group.
Yeah, and I find where I see it. And again, I think we're kindred spirits on this. I think that where I see it is if you are getting on boards just to have your name on the board and, just for the recognition, then I don't think you're going to get that. I think that if you get on a board like that and you really provide value, you really do the work, the business will follow. At least that's been my experience. Do you agree?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, they can kind of sniff you out. You know what I mean? Right. If you're just there to check a box, it's kind of like, when you're in college, or even back to high school, when you're joining those clubs to try to bolster your resume, for your college resume, people can see that, oh, you're part of this club. Well, that club really doesn't do anything, but this one does. I mean, I take, because of who I am and you, like you said, my energy level, and really because I'm marketing, I take an active role. I was co-chair for Glenwood's Night of the Big Top, which is our big event. We raised $343,000 for one night of event. I mean, yes, leading up to it, but we had a silent auction. I'm not on the silent auction committee. I was co-chair this year. I was on silent auction the 2 previous years, but I just couldn't help myself. Whenever I walk into one of my restaurants that I work with, or one of my gyms or something, hey, can I get a $20 gift card? Can I get a dinner? Can I get one of your chefs to come and do a dinner at home? And so people can kind of see your level of engagement. But then there's also ways to do, if it's just a time commitment. But if you don't have the time to commit to that, you could find other ways of being involved. Like if they're having a golf tournament, well, here, let's do an in-kind trade. I will co-brand your cups, and I'll put my logo on the other side. You get 50% off EQP with most of my vendors for that. So like get 500 cups that are 99 cents. Now they're 50 cents, whatever that looks like. And you've got some branding and you're giving it out to people and your logo's on there, and maybe they'll let you get up and speak, or maybe they'll put you in their social media and you'll get that exposure. And, with in-kind trade, it's not like you're breaking the bank. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, at the end of the day, if you're doing good, it does tend to come back, but it's only, I think, like you said, people do sniff you out. So I think that's great advice. So I'm curious, what are some tips that you give when you're talking to, professionals, whether it's on boards or just, people you're mentoring? What are some tips that you give for growing both personally and professionally?
Join a board. That's the first thing I always tell people. I say that all the time. You have to join a board. I mean, you have to be involved, and you could start with something that's just a junior board. I mean, most of the time these boards meet once a month, and there's usually 1 or 2 initiatives a year that you really have to dive in on. But most of the time it's an hour commitment. You're jumping on a Zoom call, you're jumping in a meeting real quick, whatever. But the time is valuable. It's valuable to you. It's valuable to them. I mean, when I was setting up for the Glenwood event, the guy, I had just done this rush poster vinyl banner for a client of mine who came in as a sponsor at the last minute, and I'm setting it up, and the guy goes, "Man, where'd you get that thing?" I said, "Well, I made it." He goes, "What do you mean you made it?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, I helped produce it, and and now I'm helping putting it up." And he goes, "Oh, well, so like, what do you do?" And I said, "Well, swag, like stuff." And he goes, "Our guy is awful. I want you to be our guy." And I'm like, so the night of the event, he introduces me to the boss. He goes, "This is the guy I was telling you about. Got a new client."
Right.
And I mean, they order a decent amount of hats. So like, that's, pretty cool. It's just, I mean, but I wouldn't have had that opportunity had I not put myself in that position.
I love that advice too. I don't know that that's always the first thing I recommend to people, but I think it's good advice, because what I find too, the feel good is good, right? The
Right.
business side is good. The other thing I find was when I attend these events, I tend to leave in a pretty good mood because you've got some positive folks around the table.
Absolutely.
And you're finding out what's going on in the community, whether it be Birmingham or Coshocton or wherever. And so you also kind of uncover like opportunities to help in other ways. And so
Sure.
I think that's really good advice. So
real quick, it's like, so like going back to like, some people say join a networking thing. And I think that they have their place. I really do. Like BNI, for instance, when I first started, BNI was great, but I learned quickly that it was, hey, I need 50 koozies for my sister's wedding or my small insurance firm. And if you're in a certain vertical market, great. Like housing, perfect. If you have a construction or HVAC or whatever, those companies do very well in those vertical markets, or those vertical markets do well in those networking events.
Sure.
But in those networking events, it's mostly somebody trying to sell to you, or you trying to sell somebody you. So if you're on a board, nobody's selling anything. You all have the same mentality, but now you get to know them on a personal level where they're not selling.
Yeah, boy, that's great. I like that a lot. So speaking of advice, so what's something you recommend people start doing today to make their life, whether it's their business life or their personal life, better?
That's a lot.
Yeah, right.
I mean, just, like I've said before, the process. I mean, I have that same process every single morning. I'll be honest, like last week, I wasn't having a great week and I took a week off. I took a week off of my process of posting every morning and posting my business stuff, but I needed a break. I needed a break for me, and that's okay. Yeah. It's okay for the doer to not do all the time. You don't have to be on all the time. I mean, right now NASCAR season started, so I'm going to the races almost every other weekend. So I'm doing that, helping my drivers get sponsorship. I'm doing all my nonprofit stuff. I'm in the middle of this Man of the Year campaign, which is a lot of time. Plus, I'm managing a company. So you have to have a process. You have to, do those, like you keep saying, the feel good stuff. Go work out. Makes you feel good. join a board, makes you feel good. And when you feel good, everything around you feels good.
Yeah.
It permeates through the entire community. When people see what you're doing and they see how happy you are and how happy everyone around you is, they want to be a part of it. You can market yourself through good mentality, good attitude, positivity.
Yeah, I love that. It's funny. I think one of the things that, and I like how you said that, like, there's times where you just got to take a break. What I find is it's about being intentional when you take the break. I think where people get off track is they're like, all right, I need a break. And then they go away and they never come back. No. Right. And so I think and it leads really nicely into my final question for you, which is, look, it's promo never sleeps, right? That's your handle. And you are a guy. It's one of the things that I first learned about you is you're a guy who prides himself on hustle, being willing to do the work. So how do you balance that, right? How do you balance work and then play?
Well, my girlfriends would tell you otherwise, but I find so much joy, no pun intended, right, in everything that I do. I love selling. I love creating for my clients. I love sourcing, merchandising. I love all that stuff. And I love seeing my clients get it in their hands and enjoy it. When I go to the NASCAR weekends, I love finding the connection, taking this forklift company and introducing it to my our main sponsor, Forever Lawn, which is actually up in your neck of the woods. They're an artificial turf company. Well, these big artificial turfs, they need to be picked up with a forklift. You can't pick them up by hand, so marrying these two and having them work it out. I sat back and watched them have a 30-minute conversation about forklifts that I had no idea what they were talking about, but you know what? They looked like they were enjoying it. And guess what? I was enjoying it because I made a connection that's going to make a ripple effect. And like my mom says, we're connectors, me and my mom. We're not motivators. We're not entrepreneurs. We're connectors. It's what we find, like puzzle pieces, just put them together. And I find joy in that. But I also get to enjoy going to the NASCAR races. I get to enjoy all the fruits of my labor. I work with iHeartRadio. They give me tickets to concerts. I work with football or sporting events. They give me tickets to events. I work with the mayor's office. He invites me to a suite whenever there's a game or a concert or whatever. So I get to unwind while I'm still wound up, if that makes sense.
I like that. So that's the line of the podcast right there. I get to unwind while I'm still wound up. I like that.
Yeah.
And that's really cool. And I love what you were talking about. I think there's a lesson in there where you talk about, I think when we talk about networking, sometimes we think about how can I connect to somebody who can buy from me? And I think that sort of that give first component of networking is where you can connect two people. Like, I know this person needs it and this person needs it. You two work together and enjoy. I think there's real value because both those people appreciate it.
Right. If they do buy into the NASCAR program, well, guess what they're giving all their people who go to the NASCAR race? Right. A hat, a shirt, a bag, a whatever. And so you're adding value to them, but you're adding value to yourself at the same time.
Totally. Well, cool, man. I really appreciate you taking the time again. And I'm so glad you reached out, and we'll have to do it again sometime. Okay.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kirby. Have a wonderful day, buddy.
You too, pal. That's going to wrap up this edition of Delivering Marketing Joy. We'll see you next time.